Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Chris, and I'd like to welcome you to this program about your Kundalini awakened qualities and experiences and questions. I don't know how that music worked out, so I just tried it again. So if it worked out well, then just let me know, and I'll try to do that again and again. If it didn't work out, just let me know, and I'll never do it again. Anyway, so welcome to this program, this beautiful Wednesday on a very hot, as usual, California afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon here on the Pacific West Coast of the North American continent. I'd like to welcome everybody here who is here, those who are calling in from Ireland and those who are calling in from the middle part of the country of the United States and those who are calling in from England and other European countries. Hello, welcome. And today, as usual, I will just dive right in to the topics before we start getting to people's questions. And so the situation is that for those of you that are trying to build a bridge between an activation and an awakening, this is the tear down phase. This is the phase where your egocentric personality, the identity that you are, this person within society that you are, this is kind of that tear down phase, and that may not be, the most appropriate description of it. Tear down indicates, that it's being torn apart and destroyed, but it is being changed. It is being changed from the egocentric, control-oriented, ego-based, control-oriented identity that you once were into a very, very, very surrendered identity that is being introduced to you. I'm trying to choose my words carefully here. This means that there's a lot of toxicity that is being released from the system. This means that as the toxicities are released into the system or the surface area of the person for release, you're going to feel these toxics come up. And some of the toxics can be like well, you're going to be right all the time, no matter what. There's a toxicity right there. I can do what I want, when I want, how I want, where I want, if I want to do it. There's another group of toxicities that the ego will typically spew as the Kundalini comes in and says, no, you will do this now. And you will do this the way I, as the divine feminine / divine male, want you to do it. And, there's this real gap between our self-imposed control mechanisms upon our world and how we interpret it, which we have worked with since birth. We have worked at developing this identity and this level of control since our birth. And now all of a sudden, this new birth is coming up, this new stage of existence upon this world is coming up. And this new birth really requires a level of surrender that is beyond the capabilities of most people in an instant format. Now, granted, if the surrender is accompanied by, say, a very bombastic event in a person's life, like an accident that causes injury, or a mystical experience that just boom, you experience this amazing mystical experience with downloads of information and things of that nature. Well, of course, that's going to have a very life-changing scenario. But for those of you that get these little tiny guidances that kind of push you along the way, that doesn't seem like divinity is really too over the top with the phenomena that you're getting. This is because she wants you to really do this yourself. She wants you to have the self-control, the self-discipline, the ability to choose to surrender the control that the ego has manifested over all these years with you, and surrender that control to the sacred feminine, to the Shakti Kundalini that's coming up in you, that's giving you these little tidbits of information here and there, and supporting you in a way that allows you to support yourself, rather than supporting you in a way that does all the work for you. It's very important for you to understand this, that even though you're only getting tiny little pieces of information, these little tiny pieces of information are there to help you continue to move into the surrender in a much greater and a more, in a deeper fashion, in a way that allows you to actually feel the surrendered quality of yourself. When I work with different students that are struggling with this, I always try to say, okay, pretend that you're a robot. Open your eyes wide and let your conscious fall out of your eyes. Become like a vegetarian zombie. We're not going for the whole zombie effect here. We want the vegan zombie, someone who's not eating human flesh. And so, it's important for people to understand that. It's important for people to be able to connect a certain physiological position, eyes open. Okay, eyes open, and to feel. And this is like, if you've ever seen those zombie movies where their eyes are wide and they're like, got their arms out in front of them and they're kind of going, as they look for humans to devour. Just the wide open eyes position is a very, very, very good ocular surrendering position, so that you're, when you open your eyes wide, you can actually feel a level of your consciousness, of your ego consciousness, depart from you. And so I want to give this to you today, as I want to give you a way of feeling a level of surrender occurring in real time upon your body. And so as you open your eyes really wide, and if you have a mantra, you say the mantra. And I know it's cartoonish. I get it. It's right out of that Hollywood B zombie movie. but it does have particular use. It does have it. You'll see when people get really angry or irritated, their eyes get really wide, and that ego is just zooming from their eyes. Well, when you do it within this context, you're really letting go of that. You're letting go of the egoic control. And as you do this, and as it becomes familiar with you, your eyes will slightly relax anyway. And you can blink at any time during the process. You don't have to be, it's not wide-eyed and staring in a way that doesn't allow you to blink or lubricate the eyeball. But it is a very, very wide, open-eyed stance that allows you to feel the ego falling out of your consciousness. It allows you to feel the ego falling away from your body, onto the ground, you might say, as if the ego is affected by gravity. And as you open your eyes and you allow that to occur, you can actually feel, it becomes an almost physically tactile sensation that allows your renunciation of ego control to occur. Now, for many of you, if you don't do some sort of an ego renunciation, you're going to run into severe problems, especially if you've already got the K in the activated state, the Kundalini in the activated state. Well, that chaos that you're feeling inside, you're at one point you're trying to have the control of the ego reversed, and on the other hand, you're having, the ego wants to control, and so you're going back and forth, and there's a level of chaos is occurring. And as you have that chaos occur, sometimes that can be picked up in the radiance, within your energetic radiance, and you'll start affecting people in a very chaotic way without even lifting a finger or looking at them, with chaotic eyes or anything like that. Your family may just start falling apart. Your friends may just start falling away. Your job may not be going so well. If you're trying to commit yourself to some sort of an action, and you're within this chaotic space with the Kundalini, well, that may not go well for you. And so really, it goes with that law, that specific law that we know as above, so below, as within, so without. So as you are within yourself, so does your radiance affect those environments that are outside of yourself. And so as you go through this level of ego renunciation, you really want to put yourself in a position where you're actually doing it, because it's going to be doing it to your inner and outside environments if you don't. And the least amount of time that you can have your ego committing chaos through Kundalini radiance upon the environment outside of yourself, so much the better. Unless the Kundalini is working a karmic redemptive teaching upon you that's forcing you to kind of spin your wheels in a way and have that wheel spinning affect those people around you. Well, and that's not typically the case, although everything is connected within a Kundalini continuum. It's just, I think, one of the most important aspects of the Kundalini is to let go of the ego control. Let go of the ego control and allow the Kundalini to usurp, to take over where that ego once was, and allow her to have access to your decision making, to how you choose to do what you choose to do, why you choose to do what you do, and really begin to give up the ego in a way that allows it to experience its own redemption. Yes, the Kundalini needs to have its own redemption, and that is, I should say, the ego needs to have its own redemption. Because the ego can get behind the Kundalini. Once the ego knows that it's safe and that it's secure and that there's no need to fear and all this strangeness is actually a good thing, Once the ego begins to understand that, well, the ego will move right behind and support the Kundalini agenda as much as it is allowed to do through the higher consciousness and through the Kundalini. But to get the ego around there, you must begin to redirect the control vectors that the ego has been using since you were born. And, I can sit here and say this till the cows come home, and, it's not the easiest thing to do, and yet, in a way, it is, especially if you already have the Kundalini in the activated or awakened position. Now, if you're in the awakened position, i.e. you've had a spinal sweep, it is not always a guarantee that you've got your ego under control. Okay. The spinal sweeps also have variations of degree, variations of depth that you're immersed within the divine consciousness, variations of information that's being given to you during that immersion within the divine consciousness. It's not all the same for everyone. Now, typically, a lot of the effects of the spinal sweep will have very similar consequences on people, but the individual tasks that person has to do still must be done. Just because you've had the immersion into the divine consciousness, which, don't get me wrong, is a big deal. That is a huge, huge thing, but it doesn't alleviate the tasks from needing to be completed. Okay, so it's very important for people to remember that. When being in the activated state is really a good place to be, because there you're actively working on all of it to get to that spinal sweep. You're looking at your addictions, you're looking at your dependencies, you're looking at how you can change your life in order to embrace a greater level of Kundalini within your life, working up, and she's really driving you during the activated state, driving you to purify yourself as much as you can. And so in the activated state, pre-spinal sweep, as you're working towards that spinal sweep, it's a perfect opportunity to begin to initiate a level of ego control by your higher self, by the Kundalini within you, so that it is no longer calling the shots about what choices you make with regard to the surrender. Ego does not want to surrender. It wants to stay in the driver's seat. It wants to stay in the driver's seat because that's the familiar comfort zone. Those are the reference points. Doesn't like going outside of that comfort zone and those reference points, and so it will resist. And the stronger it resists, the longer it is you're inside of this chaotic stage of wanting to go and wanting to stay at the same time. So it reminds me of that mythical creature from it's not Dr. Seuss, but it's the other guy that had a bunch of zoo animals in it. It's called a push me pull you. So you're one end is like a llama looking like creature, and it's pulling, and the other end is pushing, and so it's like they're trying to go opposite directions at the same time, and they're trying to move, and it's a contradiction. And I don't want you to stay very long within the contradiction of Kundalini within you. And that can last for years if you let it. If you allow yourself to really dive into the ego deeply within its resistance to the Kundalini, and the Kundalini, which has all the time in the world, you and your ego, you've got a very limited time. You've got maybe a little less than 100 years. But the Kundalini has, gazillions of years, trillions of years. It does, it is no rush, but it does want to see levels of progress made by you. And so, as you embrace this activation of the Kundalini within you, so must you embrace the actions of the ego. You put the actions of the ego into a surrendered template for that continued ego to follow. So you open your eyes really wide, and you allow the ego to fall out of your eyes. And then you say your mantra. And you can even just pretend like you're a robot. you kind of say to yourself, I am a robot. I wait for the command of my Kundalini. I wait and I allow for the command of my Kundalini to give me a direction. And of course, the direction is towards surrender, and so you begin to initiate more levels of surrender. It's a lot easier, though, if you have a flesh teacher going, okay, open your eyes really wide, let the ego fall out, tell me when you're there, and then you sit there, you stand there, and you let that happen. And then when you it'll be a tactile feeling. And when you feel that tactile feeling, the ego falls out, and you say, I'm ready, and then your Kundalini teacher will say, okay, go to the window and look out the window, and you kind of like zombie walk over to the window. And it's really getting you used to receiving instructions from outside of the ego. Outside of the ego. This is very important. You got to remember that Kundalini is watching this all the time. She's watching it. She's looking at how you're doing and what you're trying to do, the sincerity that you have behind what you're trying to do. All of these things are being gauged as you attempt these things. And you do this over and over and over, day in, day out. There's never a rest period, really, from Kundalini. You can sit there and process for a little bit, but there is no like, oh, I got to take a few days off the internet, or oh gosh, my 2-week vacation's coming up. I don't have to work. You never get that kind of respite from Kundalini. You never get that. And just as a reminder, we have my co-host here, Amelia Santara, and I'm not going to bring her on quite yet because I want to talk with you about this, about her as she's listening. Sorry, Amelia. But she has this entity inside her, this evil, dark, corrupting entity inside a woman who has, very high ideals, who works towards very pure applications of love and helpfulness and service to other people. She's literally a saint, and within a saintly understanding, she's getting saintly levels of difficult teachings in order to go along with that. And that entity is one of these teachings, and she is forced by the presence of that entity to make ego corrective adjustments within her 24/7 experience with the Kundalini in her life. And it goes with what I'm saying. You don't get a break from this. You don't get a day off. Don't think that you will. It's an illusion, like so much of what the ego considers to be truth. Well, it's not true. It's an illusion of truth. Okay, so I want you to understand that, this purification, this detoxification is a 24/7 process, even after the spinal sweep. There's never a day that Kundalini issues won't come to your mind or to your body or to both. So you must really begin to make a very, very proactive step in controlling the ego and its decision-making policies and how you run your life. And here's the deal. So with the Kundalini is doing its very best to change half of your life, half of your body into a divine representation of God in the flesh, divine flesh, the Word made divine, the heavenly flesh. And the other half of your body, if you draw a line, and you vivisect yourself, the other half is to stay mundane. You must continue to be under the effect of gravity. You still must eat. You still must work. You still must survive. You still must learn how to walk as a semi-divine being upon this world. This is the next expression. This is the next expression of humanity. There's a whole population of people that are doing this on this world, but they're not advertising it. This is the next, evolution of the human species, but they're not advertising it. And, because it's very dangerous to advertise that in this world. And there's not that many of them. Don't get me wrong. There's not like millions and millions of them at all. People that are doing this work right now. And because you have the Kundalini in the activated state, you have the Kundalini in the awakened state, now is the time for you to start doing this work, to learn what it is to have superhuman skills and yet not use them for self-aggrandizement, which is what the ego would want to use them for. To not use them in the ways that you don't understand the karmic effect of using them. To have them and yet not use them along the lines of what a 5-sense human being would use them. That's just with the civic skills. You know, let's talk about walking through a busy downtown center with all of the microwaves, short waves, long waves, radio waves, television waves, you know, and even some of the waveforms that are being projected upon us, cosmic rays, that we don't know about, that the government is using but not telling us about, which, you know, are more than a few. And so all these things are coalescing upon us, even from those digital meters that they stick on outside of your house to even the Wi-Fi and what, you know, the effect that the Wi-Fi has on people, all of this stuff that we use every day, that we sleep next to, some of us. Okay. So consider the effect of all of that having upon a semi-divine individual, someone who is half human and half divine at the same time. Okay, so this takes a lot of work, and there's a lot of detox that must be done. There's a lot of decisions that would go against what the ego would normally want to do. You know, the ego response to all of that would be to run away. Oh my God, I don't want to be next to that meter in my house. Oh my God, I don't want to have Wi-Fi. Oh my God, I don't want to walk on the street. I'm being inundated with all of these waves, and I can't control it. And I don't want to be. I've got to run away. I got to go to Nebraska. That's right. I'm going to go to Nebraska, and I'm going to walk off of I-80. I'm just going to park that car. Well, maybe I won't park it, but I'll drive it a long ways. Then I'll park it, and then I'll walk into the middle of that prairie grass, that long, beautiful prairie grass that just goes on for miles, and I'll just sit down somewhere, and that's where I'll be. You see, that isn't really a doable thing either. Because pretty soon you're going to have to find something to eat. You're going to have to, you know, it rains out there, so you have to get out of the rain. You'll have to, you know, go to the bathroom somewhere. I mean, you know, you're going to have to want to move beyond primal living. And maybe that's a bombing range for the government. So look at that too. Okay, all right. So I just want to really, and I'm talking a mile a minute because I want to get this, you know, when it comes up to me, it has to come out. I'm going to introduce my co-host now. She is the reason why this radio show exists. She is the Celtic queen of questionable comforts. And I'd like to introduce my co-host, Amelia Simpson. Hi, Amelia.
Hi, Chrism. Hi, everybody.
So what do you think of that? And should I also introduce the entity as well, the dark corrupting entity? No, that would probably like that.
Well, I don't know. Do you want to try?
No, I don't think we need you to channel that.
I don't think so, Chrism.
So how are you correcting your ego these days with regards to the push, that definite push that you have on it from that entity that is really ego supportive?
Yeah. Just very recently, the entity is quiet, Chrism. I was saying that with you. It's like it isn't here. And by that I mean I'm not getting the visuals, I'm not getting the sounds, I'm not getting the tactile stuff or the things in my head. So it's very quiet at the moment. It is a big dramatic thing.
And how are you dealing with that?
Well,
how has that taken you away from your self-corrections?
Well, first of all, Chrism, it's interesting because it certainly takes what's the word I'm looking for? A sharpness away from it, you know. There's a relaxing of it. Because I suppose my, what's the word? Because when it was constant and non-stop and all the time, I had to be on absolute alert, you know, all the time. So I'm back now.
That's how it
not
was.
that it's gone, guys.
That's not,
Yeah. It's
so
not that it's gone.
Now that it's
I'm
quiet,
not saying at all.
what do you do?
Yeah. Well, now that it's quiet, I have to admit that I'm thankful for the break of that, for that not being the case, because that has been really difficult. But even though it was difficult, I can appreciate, and I was grateful because, you know, there was extreme focus on my ego and what I had to, you know, direct it to not doing and doing. So I'm bringing my awareness. I'm trying to keep that all the time, Prism. When something comes up now, I say, you know, what would my Kundalini have me do? What would my teacher have me do? If I have any doubt at all about what's in front of me. What you said earlier as well about ego renunciation, I think you said you called it, which is good. I do that every day. Not just throughout the day, but I make an announcement, I suppose, of it, you know, regardless of what's going on. So even when I'm having an easy day or a blissful day, I will do the ego renunciation, and I will do the contract basically that I have. Sorry.
Wait. My God, I had to say it 4 times. There's some sort of an echo.
I'm in a car
on you.
Oh.
And there is a time delay, so it's causing me to interrupt you. I'm going to ask David, Vicky, and Michelle. Do you also hear an echo on Santara or myself? Okay, all right. Santara, do you have it on? Do you have your phone on speakerphone? Is it on speaker?
No, I have earphones in. Will I take them out? That helps sometimes, actually.
Try it. Take it, unplug it, and let's see. You know, and.
Okay. No. Is that any better?
Well, okay, yeah, there you go. Is that any better? And Vicky Vaughn is saying yes. So interesting that that's how that's worked. Because I'm not getting an echo on you. Okay.
I'm not getting an echo either, but I am hearing a time delay, Chrism.
Yes, so we have to be aware of that. I know that you're parked in a car somewhere in the wilds of southwestern Ireland, speaking to us under a burned out lamp with empty beer bottles strewn all over the place, and that the wind is howling and that there's a storm coming in, and you're there and you've got a broken passenger side window and there's water coming in, and you're there, and I appreciate it. Oh, wait a minute. Vicky Vaughn says, no, it's still echoing. So,
am I echoing or are you echoing?
Let's see. Michelle says, it's still echo a little bit with Santara on my end. And David's typing something. He's not quite done yet with that. So Vicky says, no, it's still echoing. And then Michelle says, there's a little bit of an echo with you, my dear. And then David is saying, still a bit of an echo. Huh. Well, I wonder what that is. Well, okay. All right. Um, and you're on your phone, so you can't really work the chat room. So I want you to listen, my dear. So yeah, it's difficult because she's down there in Kerry, and I don't know if any of you've been to Kerry, Ireland, but that is like one of the wild areas down there, which is why everybody likes to go to it on vacation. First of all, the beaches are really amazingly big and beautiful, and really beautiful. But they do have sharks out there. Now she'll say, "Oh, they don't have any sharks," which is like miniature great white shark washed up on the shore, and they said, "Oh well, that doesn't happen too much." But anyway, so you kind of want to think about that a little bit. But it's very beautiful, but it's very wild, and she's literally sitting in her car at 11 at night on the side of the road just to get Wi-Fi, just to be able to get her internet. So I'm really appreciative of Santara for doing that and for being a part of the program here, and I'm going to bring her back on here. So really, really, many thanks. We had no idea that you were going to have this echoing thing, right, Santara?
No, we had not. I will bring different earphones the next time, Prism.
Okay, now look, if you don't want to sit there, if you don't want to listen to the show, you want to drive back to your house, I want you to feel free to do that, okay?
What about the questions? Can you ask the guys, is my voice too echoey?
Well, okay, they're answering right now. David's answering, and we'll see how that's landing on their ears there. So I'm going to put you on in the blue for a second though. And David says it's audible enough, and it's a slight echo. Vicky is still typing about it, and we'll see what she says. And Vicky says it's all good. Why don't we go ahead and get to the questions then? We'll just do the questions right now, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and do the questions, Santara, please.
Okay, Chrism. So, from my inbox,
first question.
First question. Does Kundalini bring about a cognitive transformation?
Yeah, Kundalini definitely brings out a cognitive transformation. And Santara, don't converse with me on this. You just ask the question and wait, because that's going to turn it into a real mishmash of echoes. Definitely Kundalini will have a cognitive effect. Going to the kind of like along the lines of the topic today, you can have cognitive dissonance with it as well. But you can also have cognitive harmony as well. So it doesn't have to be dissonant. But sometimes with regards to how the information of the Kundalini comes to an individual, there can be cognitive dissonance, and there can be emotionally cognitive dissonance as well. But you take some of the people, and these people, that I've worked with and I'm currently working with, they have received a level of Kundalini, even though they may have had, difficult lives. They can be abused as children, they can be abused as teenagers, and I mean both sexually and physically and mentally and emotionally abused. They can have these qualities, they can have these traits, and yet the Kundalini will come to them in a certain way, like in a dream or in a vision, in some sort of a transcendent fashion, and it can really give them a level of information that is life-changing. They begin to understand what it is they're doing and why they're doing it. They're not clear on what it is to do, but even then, after a certain level of understanding given from the Kundalini or from the teacher, they know exactly what to do. And then, for them, it's just, beginning the discipline to do it over and over and over. Beginning the discipline to put the ego on hold. And even though they have this information, the ego is still so strong and so dynamic that it still takes a lot of practice to begin to really work the redemption of the ego, within this person's abilities that is being, amazingly enhanced by the Kundalini itself. Let's see here. So, there are people out there that the Kundalini, and, this has to do with their karma as well, that the Kundalini is coming to them and it's giving a level of extraordinary explanation. And that cognitive dissonance begins to disappear. But it doesn't overwhelm the ego to the point where it is no longer there. The ego is still there. And they still have to work at their discipline. They still have to work the process. But the level of dissonant contagion is greatly diminished. They're not questioning, well, why am I doing this? And I think that's one of these cognitive levels that are taken away is they know why they're doing this. They know they have that information and the Kundalini, and they get the information outside of a flesh teacher. They get, this comes straight from their energetic, spiritual Kundalini connection. And the Kundalini will say, hey, I want you to work with this person, or, and you can expect this kind of work to be done. And this kind of work to be done, from a societal level, is, it's harsh, it's bad. It's like, oh my gosh, you are being asked to do this type of thing. And it's a very, very, very difficult thing to do within the taboos and fears and laws and rules that the society of the mundane has ordained to be the law of the land for everyone. And that, one of the things, one example of this is to go unclothed in the environment. This is not something that is acceptable to our society. And yet with the Kundalini, it becomes a very, very freeing thing. To remove the clothing is to remove an aspect of the ego. And so, as you look at this, and you're going, you live in a suburban area, there's definitely ego cognitive dissonance going along with that. And one of the big rules that I have attached to going natural in the natural environment is that nobody is allowed to see you. This is not a nudist colony. This is not, sunbathing on the beach. This is being natural in nature within a Kundalini context. And it's very, very, very powerful, very positive, but it's also very much against the laws of most of the countries in this world. And so you've got to go to a very desolate individual, place or, locality. And these people can do it because they know why they're doing it. And it takes away their fear. It takes away that dissonance, that cognitive dissonance that can occur when you don't have such a clear direction and understanding of what is occurring and why it's occurring. So yeah, it can bring on that kind of a thing, but that kind of a thing is there only as a test. The cognitive dissonance is only there as a test. It is not there as a permanent fixture unless you resist. If you resist it, then you're going to sustain its presence within your equation. Okay, the more you resist these tests that the Kundalini brings about for you, the longer that test lasts for you. And these tests can last for years. Years and years. As I said earlier, Kundalini's got all the time in the world. You're the one with just a little bit smidgen of a time, a little less than 100 years. For some of you, maybe 100 years plus. I've got a next door neighbor over here who's 90 years old, and he's doing things that 60-year-olds don't do. There's that. Everybody's different that way. Over. Next question, Santara, please. Try not to echo.
Thank you. Is Kundalini the fastest way to enlightenment?
In my opinion, Kundalini is not only the fastest way, but it is one of the few ways that enlightenment is being offered on this world, especially at this time with the internet and with millions and millions, if not billions of people communicating with each other. You got to remember that the Kundalini will travel on sound waves, on spoken sound waves. It is one of the preeminent ways at this current time on this world for the enlightenment process to begin. You got to remember that Kundalini is an enlightenment. It lightens up the pineal gland. It is an inside lighting, which means enlightenment. When I'm at a seminar, I explain it that way. It's an enlightenment, which means that it is an inside light that is meant to happen. It is meant to be there. It is not an accident. It is not some strange phenomena from an alien in a rocket orbiting around the Earth going, oh, yes, let's put a light inside that person's head. No, it is a natural quality that is inherent in every single human being. It is inside them, and it is lightening. It has the ability to give off radiance, in a visual way as well. And it is meant to happen. So, yes, it is the preeminent force of enlightenment on this world, and people need to start understanding that. But it is not an easy task. And people can say, I have email today, people say, oh, Master Christian, dear sir, I don't know why they call me sir, but dear sir, I have a very deep interest in the enlightenment of Kundalini, and I want you to give me that enlightenment. And they just don't seem to understand how amazingly difficult that can be. Just from the topic of today's program, the redefining of the control of the ego within the individual, that is a huge job. That is so not easy to do. And, the Kundalini has this very interesting ability to tear apart a person's life, to tear it to shreds. They lose their job. They lose their income. They lose their home. They lose everything but the very basic survival premises in order to survive. They lose it all. And on the other side of the coin, they get a lot of money somehow. They're able to survive. They're able to expand. They can buy a property. They buy another property. They buy a company. They can do these things on the other side of the coin as well. It's not all just, drippy depression all the time. But often if you accept the Kundalini, like some of these people I was talking about earlier, that the Kundalini has come to them and they know why they're doing it, even though they're still working hard at trying to figure out a way to do it. They know why they're doing it, and their fear is no longer there, which means the resistance to egoic control is greatly diminished. So they can work on disciplining it instead of resisting the Kundalini. They can work on disciplining the ego instead of using the ego as a resistance mechanism to thwart what the Kundalini is doing. So, within that context, you can really begin to build. And as you practice the discipline and as you expand the wavelength of the Kundalini that's coming through you and radiating out from you, so will other areas of your life also mimic that expansion. Remember, as within, so without. As above, so below. And so these qualities are these are laws. These are very strong laws. And the only thing that can interfere with those kind of laws, those karmic laws, are karma. Okay, karma can interfere with those laws. But typically, if you don't have that karma, then you're going to expand. If you're no longer resisting the agenda of the Kundalini within you, but you're trying to work with it, maybe you're not perfect with it. You know, I don't think anybody is asking for perfection. Certainly the Kundalini understands that her children are going to stumble and fall every now and again. And, you know, this is okay. No judgment is being levied against anybody for stubbing their toe or falling or, you know, forgetting about a practice or, you know, these types of things. You got to give yourself a break. Perfection really only exists after you're dead. Death is kind of a perfection. Okay. But as you're living your life, your love and your acceptance of the Kundalini can become near perfect. And I really want people to understand that. You're allowed to make mistakes. It's okay. Nothing is going to abandon you. That doesn't mean that you go out and shoot your neighbor and go, oh, damn, I made a mistake. Damn. How did that happen? But you're allowed to make minor mistakes. Let's put it that way. Let me restate it that way. Anyway, so yeah, cognitive dissonance can occur, but it doesn't have to be a lasting scenario. Next question.
Thank you. Well, is Kundalini dangerous?
Yes, it is absolutely dangerous. It is the most dangerous thing on this world because it's forcing you to go outside of the primal survival scenarios that you have cultivated. And yet it's not at the same time. You know, it'll come to you in a vision, you know, and it'll be a venomous serpent in a vision. And the counsel is to, let that bite you. Let that king cobra sink its fangs into your neck. Or let it spit that venom into your eye. Matter of fact, you know, open your eye wider so it gets a better target. You'll be advised, let the vicious dog with the red eyes bite you. You'll be, you know, let that insect sting you. Let these things happen to you that normally you wouldn't allow to happen. Let the tiger do what it wants with you. Let it eat you. Let that giant anaconda envelop you in its coils and eat you. And typically, you know, in a human sense, in a 5 sense mundane sense, you would not allow any of these things to occur, and yet the Kundalini within the vision state and the dream state will say, yeah, do that. Okay, so one of the dangers there is to equate what happens in the vision state and to, you know, try to have that happen in the physical state, and that's not always a good practice. Now, I'm not saying that if you did that and you encountered the king cobra and that the king cobra is automatically going to kill you or the tiger is going to kill you. That's not necessarily true because they can see and sense divinity. And they will know that you are not to be harmed, and she will not let them harm you all the time. Some of the time she will, because you've got to still show a great level of respect and what's the word? A great level of respect and honoring of the natural processes of this world. You don't go out and coat yourself with honey and test the Kundalini by presenting yourself to a grizzly bear and whether or not it's going to eat you. You don't do that because it will eat you. That's not honoring the natural processes on this world. But what you can do is you can trust that the Kundalini, if you're not being stupid and you're following her directions for you upon this world, that you can trust that she will take care of you to the best that actually just totally take care of you. There is no best. It will happen. It will happen. when I was homeless and living on the street, I didn't take a bath or a shower for a year and a half. And I wasn't stinky. I didn't smell. People liked the way I smelled, and it was kind of a clean cedar type of smell. And that was her. She takes care of you. She really does. To the most insignificant you would think ways, she takes care of you, and she will continue to do that. And for those of you that know that it's the Kundalini that you are to live your life towards and by right now, well, then you're expanding, and that grace is expanding, and you know that as you continue to expand, so will your grace expand. So will the abundance and the beauty and the unlimited aspect of divine expansion connect with you and connect with those around you. For those of you that are struggling and within chaos, and perhaps you've had a lot of phenomena in your activation awakening, but you're not honoring that phenomena. You're not honoring what it's telling you. And so there's still levels of distrust and egocentrism that is coming through, and this is stifling your equation, and you're resisting through that stifling and constricting the flow, and so will the beauty and the abundance be constricted within your life. And this will, as I mentioned before, this will reach right into the people that are closest to you, your family, your spouses, your bosses, your friends, your girlfriend, your boyfriend. Even complete strangers may stand next to you and feel like, stand over here. That type of a thing. And so it's very important for people to understand that the Kundalini has the ability to expand your strengths and the grace that's coming to you. And your ego has the ability, if you allow it, to mess that up for a while. Enlightenment is not an easy thing by any stretch of the imagination. It can be very, very difficult, but Kundalini is the key. It is the key to enlightenment. Now, it's not the only way that enlightenment can occur. You can have a mystical experience where grace comes down upon you and showers you with information and experiences that will begin an enlightenment process upon you. That can happen. Mystical experiences happen. It can happen that your Kundalini is activated through things like ayahuasca, or praying a lot, or meditating a lot, and things like that. But that gets right back to the Kundalini. Many things can happen to a person that will begin to activate the Kundalini sequence within them, which will lead to eventual enlightenment. So Kundalini is one of the major forces of enlightenment upon this world. It can be dangerous if you resist it. It can be very dangerous that way. But for the most part, it is one of the safest qualities to have in your life. She will protect you. Michelle, she lives down there in Australia. You got all these venomous spiders. You got the red belly snake. You got these weird flies. You've got saltwater crocodiles that are like 60 feet long or something, and they're like eating cars. I mean, it's not, it can be somewhat of a challenging place to live. And yet, she's got Kundalini. She can walk naked into the outback and probably do just fine if she is non-resistant to the Kundalini. Michelle writes, LOL. So yeah, it can be dangerous. It can be dangerous. I remember I was using this before I really knew that I had Kundalini. I just figured I had some sort of a weird gift. And I told the story before on this program, but I'll say it again. Different audience. I was healing black widows. I was giving black widows healing. And so I walked into the pump house, in this old pump house, and they had all these black widows hanging from the walls. And I saw kind of what looked like a hurt black widow on the ground there. I thought, oh, what a perfect opportunity. I'm going to give this spider a healing. Excellent. So I start, get myself in position, get my thoughts right, and I start really giving it a healing. And I heard this scream, this amazing scream happen up on the wall. And I looked up on the wall and I saw this giant female black widow spider starting to crawl down the wall in a rapid, angry way. And then I was immediately hit with a telepathic communication from her. She's saying, don't you do that. This is our way. This is exactly what should be happening, and you have no right to interfere into this process. And as soon as I got that, I stopped, and she stopped, and I left the pump out. She could have just come on over and really bit me or something, or some sort of a terrible thing. But Kundalini can be dangerous. It can also, if you resist it too much, you can really hurt yourself badly. And this is your reaction to Kundalini that is hurting you. It's not the Kundalini itself, but it is your reaction to it. You can go deeper into alcoholism if you're really, really, really frightened about what's occurring. If you haven't really received the information well. You can also be looking for phenomena too hard. People get addicted to the phenomena of Kundalini. They'll get addicted to bliss. They'll get addicted to, the beautiful, endless vistas of glorious, beauty, like eye bliss in a way. They get addicted to that. They don't want to meditate. Oh my God. They don't want to give up their beer. And they don't want to give up their marijuana. And they don't want to give up their magic mushrooms. They don't want to give up these things. And but they still want to have the bliss, and they would still want to have, all of these beautiful, wonderful, amazing things happening to them. And so they will continue along that path until it ruins them in some way. Not advised. The short path to Kundalini awakening is one thing, but continuing that short path after the awakening is something else completely, and it's very destructive. Talking about that, we went down, Amelia and I and Joey and Rosemary, all who are listening right now. We went down to Peru. We went down to Peru to Alonso del Rio's place down there in Tere, Peru. A little bit, I believe it's a little bit north of Cusco, about an hour. And we went down there, and we're going to do the ayahuasca, and we're talking to people, and it's just like, oh yeah, I've done ayahuasca 140 times, and I'm thinking, I was like, 140 times? And the question is why? Why are you doing it 140 times? Oh well, I really like the Pachamama, and she's like, that's their word for Shakti. And I really like the experiences that I have, and I feel like it's like really helping me. And I'm just kind of going, oh my God, 140 times. I've had it 7 times now, and I don't think I want to have it anymore, to be honest with you. But, that to me, that's an over infatuation with an outside source of some inner information to come to you. And I'm going to ask you, Amelia, if you had the same feeling after your various ayahuasca encounters.
Yes, Chris, I wouldn't particularly want to be doing it again now anyway.
Oh yeah, with that dark thing in you, that would be a weird thing, huh?
Yeah.
What if you'd see it?
No,
Missing you. You're not transmitting.
I'm going to stop talking.
Okay. Next question. I'll just telepathically receive it.
Okay. From the groups now.
Go ahead.
Does Kundalini make you mad?
Say again.
Does Kundalini make you mad?
Yeah. Well, there's a difference. In the United States, when we say, does the Kundalini make you mad? That means, is it making you really angry? But in other, like in Britain or perhaps even Ireland, madness is more equated with crazy. Like, really, not mentally there. But I'll have to say yes to both. It can make you really, really angry if you're really not initiating any kind of ego control. Well, it can make you really, really angry, and that anger will come out in these amazing outbursts that you may not notice as being so bad, but to the people around you, it's damaging. You can have your relationships crushed by the level of anger that is being pulsed through you by not, putting a discipline on your ego and doing your forgiveness work, doing your gratitude work, doing your tolerance work. Okay, and as you blast out that level of ego upon you, wow, it can really, really, really hurt people around you. Not only them, but your relationship to them, family, your friends, your workmates, and all these things. And so you've got to be very, very careful with that. And along the lines of the craziness, oh my gosh, this is why people self-commit to a psych ward. Because some sort of a dark thing like what Amelia's got, crawling inside her is going to crawl inside them and start talking to them like a real person is standing in front of you talking to you, except it's happening in your head and you don't get to see them. And that, my friends, is the exact definition of schizophrenia. Okay? And the extreme anger that I was just mentioning, the extreme anger, which will be complemented by extreme bliss, and then back to extreme anger, is the exact definition of bipolar. And both of these really are phenomena of the Kundalini. You don't have that disease that kills you or that makes you crazy. You're expanding your five sense body into a multiple, a much more sensorial body, and so you're able to hear telepathic entities coming to you, even be able to see them. You're able to have emotional expansion. If you don't have the emotional expansion, or what we're calling the bipolarism, if you don't have that, and you're not, actively within your ego suppression, or should I say the ego reorganization, helping with the Kundalini rather than blocking it, you can go into those levels of bipolarism too, but you don't have to. That is also a mechanism for bliss. To be able to have tremendous levels of emotional expansion, you must do that in order to be able to incorporate bliss upon the physical organism in a much more permanent fashion. You've got to be able to increase the length of the polarities or the extremes. Now, granted, with the anger, that kind of an extreme, you can learn through the control of the ego to channel that into a positive force. Doesn't mean that the anger is taken away. It just means that it's channeled in a way that doesn't damage other people. It's channeled into a focus. It's channeled into activity. It's channeled, into a force of strength, a force of even a force of healing. Giving a person the dynamic of wanting to be healed, to helping them heal, and really, really using that anger force and transmuting it into another level of energy that is very blessed. It's a blessing and a positivity for the Kundalini person, but also for the people around them. But also expanding from the other end of the anger back into the bliss. In order to hold that high level of bliss, you've got to have the extremes of the polarities expanded. Okay? And so, that is a necessity. You must be able to do that. So yes, it will make you mad. It will make you madder than you've ever been in your life. And it'll make you more joyful than you ever have been in your life. And it's supposed to do that. You don't have bipolarism. And if you're hearing that voice telling you to kill yourself or that you're not worthy enough, that is just a test. That is the way to test your fear. And you're not schizophrenic either. Although, if you go to the MD with either of those symptoms, I guarantee you, will be labeled as bipolar schizophrenic. And you will be put on the heaviest tranquilizers they can find. That's a fact. Over.
Thanks, Prism. Next question. Do we have anything like divine ego within the Kundalini context?
Well, yeah. I mean, when the ego gets behind the process, when the ego stops trying to control the process, and you're able to take the ego out of its control vectors, and it begins to support the process. Well, it is going through its own evolution at the same time. And yeah, that is when you become in harmony with yourself, with the, from the Hawaiian Huna perspective, with the Unihipili, which is their ego, to the middle self, which is your higher functioning conscious self, and then the Kundalini, which they call Amakua. Okay. Now, this is ancient Hawaiian understanding. If you look at the current understandings of Hawaiian Huna, it's very different than what I'm explaining. It's very different from that. But in the ancient Polynesian version of Huna, that's what it is. Unihipili, ego, Uhane is the middle consciousness, and Amakua is the Kundalini. That's the sacred three, the Trinity. And it can get behind it. And boy, you can do some amazing things when you have that ego behind the Kundalini, supporting the Kundalini, and helping you come into a greater level of reverence, honoring, love, and happiness within your Kundalini context. Over.
When Kundalini awakens, do people eat more or eat less?
They eat more or they eat less. If they're extremely thin and they've always been thin and the Kundalinis going to put weight on them, they will eat more. But they'll eat more of the foods that are conducive to Kundalini rather than just, eating, the blubber, in order to get fat. They will exercise more. Their protein synthesis will increase. Their muscles will build. At the same time, great levels of caloric intake are being used in order to rebuild the energetic anatomy at the same time, and the endocrine system and all the different organs that begin to process the energy of the Kundalini through the physical system. All of the organs and cells of the body have multiple, if not dual, purposes within life. And of course, the pancreas will regulate sugars and things of that nature, and the stomach digestion. The kidneys will remove salts and other types of qualities from the bloodstream. Well, at the same time, the kidneys, the pancreas, the stomach also have energetic qualities and collaboration with the Kundalini. As the Kundalini comes into the system, those organs, kick in to their other function that allow the energetic anatomy to build and to be nourished and to express itself upon the physical organism. So you can eat more or eat less. Sometimes she'll put you into a fast, and you'll be eating much less, and yet you'll feel fine. I mean, you'll feel okay with that. It's not going to hurt you. Sometimes it's a level of detox, very similar to what kind of fasting goes on before an ayahuasca ceremony, where basically you're relegated to certain grains and certain types of fruit. I mean, quinoa is a big one. You eat a lot of quinoa during those types of fasts. And another kind of fast is an apple fast, where all you get to eat are apples. And if you have the red delicious kind, well then, that is what you get to eat. And that is only what you eat for the next 5 days, 7 days. You just eat apples. And you can gorge yourself on them. You can buy a couple of bags and you can have an entire bag in one night, but that's all you get. Just getting the apples and the apple juice that is in the apple. And you do that and you lose weight, and it's a definite clean out of the individual system, and so on and so forth. And you can eat a lot of that or as little as you decide. She gives you that leeway. But with other things, she won't give you any leeway at all. You'll have to eat that meat even though you haven't been able to eat the meat before, for many years. Babies will typically eat meat, FYI. And so yeah, you can eat a lot or you can eat little, and it'll be determined by her decision about what your Kundalini agenda is calling for. Over.
Thanks, Prism. Is it possible that even if you do not follow intuition and you are in a not nice situation, by your endeavors, Kundalini is still working? I feel it like that.
Well, yeah, I think so. Yeah. That's what happens to people before they're when they're pre-activated. The Kundalini's moving in them, but they're not really doing anything yet. And then, boom! Once the activation comes, then they're starting to become coerced and manipulated towards doing certain types of activities. Over.
Thank you. Does one's Kundalini in an activated state trigger some people to be anxious or irritated, like almost as if they were trying to pick a fight with you?
Yes, absolutely. But not just in the ways where, you're picking a fight. That would be more of an entity incursion, I feel, upon a person. But like, you just look at relationships. The ego will trigger you to say yearn for that old relationship, or the Kundalini will come into you and deprive you of a relationship, and your ego turns around and says, no. I want to have that relationship. I want to be in a relationship. I don't care what the Kundalini says. I want to have that woman in my life. I want to have that man in my life. I want to have these relationships, and I'm going to scream, yell, cry, kick my feet on the floor unless I get my way. And if you've never seen a 57-year-old man do that, it's quite a sight. The scenario is that you don't get to have it the way you want it. You'll get to have it the way she wants you to have it. She being the sacred mother and the sacred father, he. Those two are the ones that begin to control your life along the lines of what they want you to have. You don't get to go back to the familiar comfort zones just because you want to. The genie never goes back in the bottle. Once that activation's gone up, typically, within the activation, you'll continue along with it. And then after the spinal sweep, then it's constantly out. It'll never go back in. Okay. Doesn't mean you'll feel it all the time. If she doesn't want you to feel her, if he doesn't want you to feel him, then you won't feel it. But it's always going to be in the awakened state. Yeah, with the agenda of confronting other people, no, that's more of an entity. Person's given into an entity, and they're mistaking that entity and its effect upon their ego as Kundalini, which is quite common. People do that. People will do that. People, because they're not familiar, they don't have a lot of reference points for what Kundalini phenomena does, how it feels, et cetera, and so forth. But they begin to co-opt or they begin to replace other phenomena that they don't understand as a Kundalini phenomena. And it's just, it isn't. It is an incursion from an entity typically. Over.
Thank you for that, Chrism. But can I just ask the question again, because I think the person meant other people being triggered. Like, does the Kundalini have other people triggered so that they pick a fight with you?
Oh, I see. Sure. If they're dominated by entities, and those entities can see that you're not dominated, they will try to pick a fight with you. They want your ego to come to the fore. They want to do anything they can do to corrupt your process. So yes, they will do that. Over.
Okay, and that would be a test then for the Kundalini person?
Yes, that would be a test. Now, put those questions on hold for just a second. And I'm going to come on over to Rosemary. Hi, Rosemary. I see Joey's there, Priya, but I think that is, oh no, that's a 952 number. Oh, okay. My bad. See, Rosemary's not here. Okay, all right. Well, I just want to make an announcement then. On October, the last week in October, there is a Kundalini seminar that I'll be giving in Minnesota, and I'll give you the exact dates right now.
Prism?
The exact date. Yeah.
There she goes, Prism. Something is there. Here's Rosemary.
Yes, please.
Well,
Are you there?
yes, I'm here.
Okay, is it my turn?
Well, it was.
Okay, and I'm hearing an echo, so can you hear an echo too?
Well, no, I'm not hearing you echoing.
Good. Okay.
Go ahead, my dear. Make your announcement.
Yes, I have the honor of announcing both. We have two seminars this fall. The first one is in Berlin, and I'm speaking on behalf of Manisha, and I have that information. It will be at the 16th and 17th of September, and there'll be that weekend seminar with the invitation to come and spend the weekend with Chrism and with other Kundalini interested folks, and maybe some people that have done a seminar before. And Friday evening there will be a special gathering opportunity from students from the past to meet with people who will be coming to the seminar. So that's a great blessing in community building. And if you're interested, then contact Manisha at postio.a, and I'll spell that MANEESHA at posteo.de. And the second seminar is the one here in Minnesota. That will be 6 weeks later, October 28th and 29th in Mankato, Minnesota. That's about an hour south of St. Paul or Minneapolis. And it's at the American Hotel, the conference there. We have a block of room for people wanting to stay there with a group rate. And the number there is 507-345-8011. And my information is rosemarygg at usinternet.com or 651-329-9615. And we both welcome your registrations and the opportunity for all to share time together with Chrism. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. And I'm going to reiterate some of that because I think Michelle was saying there was an echo. And so for those that are interested in attending either one of these events, the September event, as she mentioned, will be on the 16th and the 17th of September. That'll be in Berlin. We will have that meetup on the Friday, the 15th. And it's really nice to be able to meet other Kundalini people, believe me. This can be such a lonely path. And so for those of you that are in Europe or on the East Coast of the United States or in India or, that have an easier way of finding passage to Berlin, well, then I strongly recommend it. It can be a great, great blessing to come to one of these seminars and to participate with other people that are having a very similar events to what you're having. And so I do encourage you to come to Berlin, September 15th, 16th, 17th, in Berlin, and you can contact Manish, that's Maneesha, and then Maneesha in that Maneesha Manish, Maneesh. She's on Facebook, or you can contact Rosemary Goliath, and her number is, as she stated it, but I'm going to give it again. Right now, she's calling from her 952-303-6438 number. I believe she gave us a different number, but that's also a number now she's gone. And then there's the October seminar, and that is happening on the 28th and 29th, I believe. No, it's the 28th, 29th, 30th of, sorry, my bad. It's the 28th, 29th of October. So basically 27, 28, 29. And then and that'll be happening in Mankato at the American Hotel, because we're Americans here. And it will be happening there on the and we'll be having that seminar there. And you'll meet Rosemary, you'll meet Joey, you'll meet many of the participants. And many of the people that you see in some of our groups will be coming as well. And so I just want to encourage you all to come to either one of those seminars. And I want to thank Rosemary and Joey and Katie for supporting the Minnesota seminar. And I'd like to thank Maneesha Manish and Santara and Heidi and all the others that are supporting the European seminar in Berlin. Thank you, everyone. All right. Continuing on with these questions, Santara, please. Thank you for letting me interrupt. That's interesting that we're having all these echoing issues now. Go ahead, Santara.
Okay, Chrism. 2 seconds now. The last question is, I would like to ask a question for today's show. Is it true that souls are tricked into reincarnation by outside forces, and white lights seen after death is just some fake road to be trapped by?
Boy, I didn't understand any of what you're saying. Try again. Go slow.
Is it true that souls are tricked into reincarnation by outside forces? Chrism?
I'm here. I'm asking that question to my Kundalini. No, it is not true. Souls are not tricked. Over.
The end of the questions then.
All right. And I'm going to keep this show at an hour and a half because we're having such a hard time communicating. But I would like to thank you, Santara, for coming on board and sitting out there in the lashing rain with your broken passenger side window in the wilds of southwestern Ireland, dealing with the wolves and the deer and the druids and everything there. Thank you, my dear, very much for your sacrifice. Thank you, everybody that has called in and that has been listening on the telephone and that have been, and thank you, Rosemary, and for making your announcements. Feel free to join us next week. Same Kundalini time, same Kundalini channel, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. And I'll go ahead and end it the way we started it here. Oh, I never did get it. Did anybody hear the music at the beginning? Anybody in the chat room hear the music? Did the music work? David's typing. He's probably going to say no. Was it okay? Was it funky like it always seems to turn out to be? All right. I will go ahead and let that go. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
nun zum Wetter. Heute werden es frühlingshafte MX5 Grad. Die Regenwahrscheinlichkeit liegt bei unter MX5% und die Sonne scheint mindestens MX5 Stunden.
Nichts wie Roadstern. Am besten im legendären Mazda MX5. Schon ab 109 € monatlich. Jetzt mehr Infos zum Angebot auf Mazda.de. Mazda.